So welcome to our P2P Network webinar series. Today we have an exciting presentation about the Water Data Exchange Project, a platform for Western states to share water data. So my name is Lucas Stevens. I'm a policy associate at the Internet of Water, and I'm the host for the webinar today. In just a minute, I'll turn over the controls to Adel, Abdallah, and Ryan James of the Western States Water Council. Adel is a program manager for the WaDE project that you'll be hearing about today. And Ryan is the project's data analyst and hydroinformatics specialist. First, I just want to go over a few housekeeping details. So we are recording the webinar today, and we will send out the recording and the presentation slides to everyone who registered. And these will also be available as links on our website. So if you have to leave early or you miss something, don't worry, it will be preserved for you. We also have time for a Q&A session at the end that I will moderate. Please submit your questions for that in the Q&A box, and I will read them out following the presentation for Adel and Ryan. If you have any administrative issues or technical problems, you can put those in the chat and we will hopefully get those fixed. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Adel. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Great, yeah, thank you, Lucas.
Adel, you can go for it.
Thank you, appreciate it. So let's see here. Can I get the thumbs up here that you guys see my screen? Yeah, great, thank you. Okay, let me just adjust this one here. Yeah, wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. I see that we have 38 participants so far, and maybe more will be joining. I appreciate your time and I hope you enjoy the presentation. So I have my colleague here, Ryan James, also presenting towards the end, or maybe the middle. And we're planning to have plenty of time for the Q&A session. So hopefully we will get much of those. So WaDE stands for the Water Data Exchange Program here at the Western States Water Council. And we're based in the Salt Lake Valley in Utah. So I will be talking about like why we have WaDE, and then I'll talk about the WaDE 2.0 architecture and its design, and then the status of data mapping and importing that data into WaDE. Okay, I got that as 2 points here. Sorry, but then we have the WaDE 2.0 design stages and where we're headed. And then I'll introduce the WaDE personas, and I'll leave it to Ryan to talk about and demo our dashboard, which should be coming sometime soon. We have no specific date yet. So we are data analytics here, right, by training. And so we wanted to look at who are the audience. And I think this one is a little bit older sheet, the registration sheet, than the one that we got this morning here, but it still shows some, it's hopefully a representative sample of who you are out there. So we have pretty much good coverage from our Western states, the membership here. We noticed that about 50% of you are unfamiliar with the Western States Water Council, so I'll take a minute to talk about the council. And then 66% of you are unfamiliar with WaDE. So thank you for coming to this webinar. Hopefully we will satisfy that need and make you familiar with WaDE. We have some folks coming from the East Coast and the South, so we're appreciative of that. We noticed that 40% of you, about that you're interested in water data services in general, and another 40% want to learn about WaDE, and some 20% are looking for data services to use for research or work. And I noticed that one of the comments left here that it's getting confusing to know about all these different data services. So I appreciate that comment, and hopefully we'll make it clear how WaDE fits in the big picture of the Internet of Water data services. All right, so this is, I think, the take-home message that I want you to walk away after this webinar. And here's what we're Let me see a second here. I think, wait, I apologize. I think I'm sharing an older version here. Let me just stop sharing. Done. I apologize for this. Let me see. I've been back and forth with different ones. There it is. Okay. Back here. I apologize for this. Okay, so yes, so yeah, now after talking about the audience, I want to kind of just briefly tell you about the Western States Water Council for those folks who are unfamiliar with it. The council was established in 1965, and it's one of the great organizations out there, governmental organizations out there, that I feel like they're under the radar, but we're doing a great job, especially at the policy side of things. So the council represents the Western 18 states, including Alaska, and its mission is to ensure that the West has an adequate, secure, and sustainable supply of water of suitable quality to meet its diverse economic and environmental needs now and in the future. It's a mouthful mission, but you can see the careful crafting of all these words. The council, one of the really foundational or critical things that the council accomplished is the Landsat 8. The council rallied like many senators to support this mission, and now it's been used widely, not just in the US, but around the world with infrared imagery and so forth. One of the cool applications is the OpenET project to estimate evapotranspirations in the West. In 2011, and prior to that, even the council realized that to have sound policy, we need to support that policy with solid data, regional data. And so they established much earlier, even before I joined the program, they established the WaDE program as a framework for member states to share that data, water data, within each other, the public and federal agencies. And I'd like to acknowledge the role of the first program manager of WaDE, Sarah Larson, who basically built this program from scratch. The WaDE is governed by the Water Information and Data Subcommittee, WIDS, and it represents, it has representatives from the 18 member states and a few federal agencies and water data advocates. We just relaunched the WIDS committee a couple of weeks ago with new representatives and hopefully fresh ideas, but they direct the WaDE program and basically write recommendations to the Western States Council Executive Committee that they can take actions upon. And so we also ask our member states to provide feedback on federal data initiatives, and so and potentially how that could impact each state. We organize the WIMS workshop, which stands for Water Information Management Systems, where we address this, we raise a specific topic about that states are interested in related to water data, and we organize these workshops. The last one was 2 years ago in 2019, where we worked with USGS on data sharing, facilitating data sharing with the USGS water use program. So here's the link for the WIDS committee, and I think the slides will be posted online along with the recording, so hopefully you can use these links that I'm sharing in the slides. This is the key slide that I want you to walk away with, which kind of gives you a big perspective. Many of you are familiar with these data services, mainly by federal agencies, whether EPA and USGS and reclamation here. Reclamation, this is kind of a little bit like not yet prominent out there, but it provides really cool data for reservoir storage and flows, inflows and releases. I really recommend it if you are not familiar with. So most of this data is for water supply on the supply side of the equation. But when you ask a question about about the water use, then you don't find any regional or national scale data services for that. And that's where WaDE comes in to fill in this huge gap, to know about water rights, site-specific withdrawals and use that the states have, besides what this national, in addition to the national network that USGS provides access to. How much water has been used and supplied and so forth, the water budget equation or data for each basin or county in the West, and then what are the regulatory overlays that are in effect in an area and so forth. This map here shows points of divergence for water rights in the West, and I'll leave that to Ryan to explain and show you a demo. It's really exciting that we're getting to this point that you can look at where the water, you can look at our contract with nature, how much water we can withdraw, and in the priority system of the Western water law. So that's sort of, and you can also, some of you might be familiar with the USGS National Water Use Census or water availability, and they do that once every 5 years since the 50s. And you can imagine how much time it takes for the USGS team to go into each of the states and ask them about their data, put that data together. It's a very time-consuming process. So we're helping USGS in that sense in connecting water use data from the states to USGS, and I'll talk about that in a second. I'm kind of going to go back and revisit here just this big picture of about the WaDE program. It was established late 2011, and as I said, Sarah Larson established it from scratch by building relationships and connection with our member states and having a WaDE 1.0 distributed data system schema. And then I joined the council in 2017, and the states have started sharing data more than before, and technology has changed in how the states could share that data, and even metadata standards have been kind of coming online. So we decided to overhaul this WaDE 1.0 to 2.0, which we reworked the entire WaDE schema that I'll show in a minute, and centralize that in a cloud setting. So we're concluding this second phase by the end of this year, and we're very excited to be going to the third phase, where we, I don't want to say stop talking about data sharing, but we move the focus to be about serving that data and looking at use cases and how that data could be used and making it operational. Oops. So here's kind of the big picture of this WaDE architecture. We work with every single Western state agency, and I've seen many of the Western states folks joining. Thank you. And we're very appreciative of the time that your coworkers or yourself, you spend with us to map this data from your unique data structures and vocabulary into the WaDE data templates. So we built this data template that we can fit any data for water use, water rights, and so forth into these templates. And we take care of mapping this data on behalf of our member states. We understand that they're so busy, so we take care of that. And once the data is put here, we have an IT contractor that built this data loader that you can push all these templates from a click of a button. And that's many times not the case, as Ryan will tell you. And then it becomes available through WaDE, the centralized WaDE database. And we have a Swagger Hub-based open API that any one of you, some of you are researchers here in the webinar, you could access that data programmatically. We've been, for the past year and earlier this year, we've been very busy with developing this WaDE dashboard that Ryan will demo, at least at the beginning of it, and how that basically we put that data to, well, trying to serve analytics and data access much easier than just trying to write code. And we're integrating with very excited to be working with the Internet of Water group here, and Kyle Adel is leading this effort with USGS. We're integrating all this data that WaDE serves on behalf of the Western 18 states to be interoperable with the USGS data services and EPA and so forth. And we'll talk about it a little bit in a minute. So the WaDE 2.0 schema, for those of you who are probably a handful in the world who love to work with databases, including myself, kind of in the big picture, we're capturing these key metadata items here for every single data in WaDE. And we have everything on GitHub. So you can go WSWC Water Data Exchange, and you can see all the different repositories that we have. I wanted to highlight that this metadata schema here at the high level, these are kind of the key ones we're capturing. There are so many other details that we're capturing, and we've been reviewing this with the USGS water use team, and they approved. It's still kind of in progress, but they now recommend the states to use this WaDE data schema to share their water use data with the USGS team. So if you're interested, if you can click at this link, it'll take you to the templates, Excel sheet templates that you can see how you could fit your data into them with no, if you work with databases, you know, primary keys and foreign keys and relating things, we're avoiding all of that and having you, and you can use the data dictionary templates at a higher level, and then we take care of all the mapping and linking things together. So yeah, feel free to visit this and look at the USGS recommendation. So yeah, this kind of a picture, like a big picture of the schema, how it looks, and here's a link for it. If you're interested, you could, once the PowerPoint is uploaded, you can click there and see it. And then here's the Swagger Hub link to our APIs. We have these key 5 APIs for water rights, and this is more of a digest, high level of water rights, aggregate water use, site variable amounts for withdrawals and so forth, time series data, and then all the regulatory overlays in the West that govern how water is used. So that's more of the design of the schema and trying to fit data structures from Western 18 states into a single one. We're also working with translating the vocabulary and terminology that the states have to describe their own water rights and water use data into a common one. And one example here that Ryan will show you, we found over 400 unique terms that the states use to describe a beneficial use that a water right holder can put that water to, you know, for a beneficial use. And that's a legal term. So we don't want to mess with it. And so but we came down, or we added a new column to map these unique terms into WaDE terms. So that's an addition. It's not we're not subtracting or changing how the states do it. It's just we're adding this new column, and we're coordinating with the states to, you know, have them approve what we've done, that if this mapping works. I'll show you kind of a screenshot of this. Beneficial use, water source type, these are relatively straightforward to work with. We quickly, Ryan and I were both engineers. We realized that legal status of a water right is a much trickier one to trying to come up with generic terms. We're thankful to our legal counsel at the council here, Michelle Bushman, who's the lawyer, and she warns us like, oh, we got to be careful on how we come up with these, that we map legal status terms, as you can see some of the examples here between the states. So these are to be determined, and we're working with the legal committee at the council to come up with those agreed upon terms. Here's a screenshot. So we're hosting all these controlled vocabularies, but we're hosting actually the native terms that the states share, and then our addition, as we call them, WaDE controlled vocabulary terms, online at this repository here. And then here's kind of a screenshot of how these map to each other. We looked at a term that maps the USGS terms, so agricultural, and we looked at how the states define this. And my favorite is Oregon. They have a specific beneficial use for cranberry. And you can see other states, they just use irrigation, like a bunch of these states here, while you can see nursery uses, or Oregon is being really specific here. But anyway, in the end, we're having all these different unique terms mapped to a common term that Ryan, as I said, many times now, he will show you how, when you can click it, show me all the agriculture in the West. So that's how that is being used. Where we're at with getting data into WaDE. We're really thankful to our member state agencies and their staff that helped us to map their data it's a public online, it's available online for water data, water rights one. And we've mapped all the states marked in blue, and we're still working with New Mexico and Texas. New Mexico, they still haven't released their priority date and amount for each water rights. And we're looking forward, once they do that, to share their data here. And Texas, they're still kind of in the process to quality control and quality assurance, well, to go through the Q&E and QC process to finish their data, especially in the Rio Grande. Site-specific data, this is what the states have data as far as like even sometimes like seasonal time series of water withdrawals. And so we've imported data for the states marked in blue. And then we're working with New Mexico and Texas. That's kind of our goal this spring. It might even push to the summer to import their data into WaDE. As I said, we're working with USGS to streamline that data from the state to WaDE to USGS using the schema. And so we're started with a pilot for the state of Utah to share their M&I data straight to USGS. And we had a first run, and the USGS folks wanted another change in our schema. So we went back and made the changes, and they just pushed them last Friday, which messed up a little bit of what Ryan wanted to do in the demo today. So I'll leave that to Ryan to talk about. And as far as aggregate water use data, all the states marked in blue, we've imported their how much water was depleted or how much water there was available in a specific year at a watershed scale, whether it's a common one like a HUC, hydrologic unit, or it's a very specific, like in Utah, they call it like sub-area. For some states, they do not produce aggregate level of water use at a county or HUC scale. So we're trying to accommodate whatever our member states have to share there. Oh, and we also imported data for the upper Colorado River Basin, data that were estimated by or using the models of the Bureau of Reclamation. This is not state data, it's reclamation data, but our database is scalable that we could update data to any, in theory, polygon that you have water use estimate for. Looking at the time here. So this is a slide that I worked with Kyle Unda, the Inner Water on, and Lily Watson contributed to it earlier. And so the big goal of WaDE that we don't want to just be adding another silo of water data that is, it's separated on its own. So we're very excited to be working with the Kyle and the USGS team, Dave Blodgett, on the GConnects project, where I think it's envisioned the simplest term to use. It's the search engine, the Google search engine for water. And Kyle Unda, he would be the best to talk about this. But what I wanted to show you that for each data in WaDE, we're building integration with GConnects where someone could search for water rights data along with reclamation data, how much water is available in a reservoir upstream of water rights, or quasi time series data and so forth, EPA, water quality, and so forth. So we're hoping to bring all these data sources together through persistent identifiers. So if you have a water right in WaDE, it will have a persistent identifier. Even if the states change anything about it, you still you can still access that water right through this persistent identifier. And each water right would have a global landing page that you can access through this GConnects integration. To recap here, so for at least the development process here or the phase, we've built this WaDE 2.0 database and data loader and API, and it's ongoing here. We continue to import data to the WaDE system. And I think that's a really exciting addition to the WaDE efforts for the past many years. Now we've created a prototype for our WaDE database, and we've built a mock-up of the full dashboard. So we thought, we worked with the IT contractor, and the question was like, okay, so what's your dream dashboard would look like, and what would it support? So we built everything. It's a mock-up, but it kind of simulates how the final design will be. And it's a matter of basically pouring more money on that design to the IT contractor to make that mock-up dashboard a reality. So that's going to be the next step over the rest of this year and next year, going to be building this dashboard and supporting use cases. And that sort of is the motivation of the entire WaDE 2.0 update. The first one, it was very time consuming to basically come up with a schema that works for 18 states. And so it was very centered on sharing data in a common schema. And that was a huge accomplishment. And so Sarah, at the time, before she left the Upper Colorado River Commission, we decided to kind of redesign WaDE 2.0 around use cases that support how one of these 6 key fictional personas would use the dashboard or WaDE data. And Tony Willardson, our executive director, helped us with kind of the big picture of things, because Ryan and I were kind of focused on like number 3 to 6, but he thought that, oh, Stan, the state engineer, we need to add that at a higher level and even at the governor level. So I'm going to walk you through these use cases really quick and then leave it to Ryan. I think I took much longer than I wanted. So Gary, the governor, he would be interested in looking at communities that would be vulnerable to water transfers, like rural communities. That could be a target of water transfers. And so how to protect them, integrating data across state agencies. So often, many of the states, they have data that is siloed within each state agency. So WaDE would be in one way or another integrating that data. And then we're going to be coupling data from WaDE for states data with other federal data agencies like reservoir storage and so forth. Stan, the state engineer, I'm going to quickly go through this one. So if someone applies to the state engineer for a new water right, this dashboard will be supporting a data query to show, show me all the water rights downstream that could be affected of this new application or a modification of an existing water rights. And then they could be looking at evaluating water availability upstream of that location. And this use case uses the network indexed network link index, what is the last one? NLDI. So USGS built this national fabric navigation tool. You can query data upstream or downstream of any location on the map. So we're supporting that. Maggie, the River Basin Manager, and this is a very rich use case or persona that looks at a river basin that spans multiple states. And since we have a common schema and all data coming from different states, that's a really interesting use case. One example is shepherding a simulation of if we want to shepherd water downstream of a location and make sure that it's a conserved water and the downstream folks do not use it and think of it as an extra flow in the river. You can identify all the senior water rights folks and tell them, oh, this water is coming to you, but it's not the natural, you don't have to use it. This is a conserved water, we're shepherding it downstream. That's a very interesting application. And there's no time to go explain much more than that for now. I apologize. We're looking at land use and water use and the connections between them. What I've shown you kind of a quick map here is the point of diversions, but we're also working with now moving to the point of view or the place of use where for each water right, where the water is going to be used. And I think there's some really interesting simulations of how water and land are connected, especially with diversions outside the river basin for use. Frank the farmer, that's an interesting use case, looks at the individual. If you zoom in and you ask, oh, show me the surrounding water rights, it could be affecting my water right, or especially for buying or selling. Although WaDE is more meant to be used for regional analysis, but we're still, it could be a potential use case. And Frank could be looking at storage upstream or downstream of their own water rights. And both Ryan and I were researchers and trained in grad school, and we thought, oh, researchers always wanted the data, right? And so we want to also support a use case where someone could click a button, download me all this data in this river basin. I'm gonna turn it to you right now to go through the demo. And these are kind of the highlights of his demo. Brian?
All right, I'm just going to share my screen here, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
All right, my name is Ryan James. I'm the data analysis of the Western States Water Council. Today, I'll just give a quick rundown on the status of the front-end development of the WaDE 2.0 system, which we are calling the Western States Water Data Analysis Tool, or WSDAT for short, which we envision as a data-rich dashboard tool with our user has the ability to look for and export a variety of water-specific data, including water right data, aggregated water use area for water budget reasons, site-specific time series gauge information, and of course, regulatory boundary information for regulating use of water. I want to emphasize how much the program has changed in its lifetime from its initial WaDE 1.0 lives with the connections built by its founder, Sarah Larson, and the work continued today by Adel here. How much the project has changed and the technological boundaries we've had to overcome, which is a big thanks to our IT contractor. And of course, big thanks to our neighboring states for continuing to share their states and work with this project. The front end is unfortunately still in its early development as we're working on it. We do not have a working dashboard we can share at this time publicly. We have a few in-house prototypes I'll just go over today to show you how the work is progressing and how we use these for roadmaps in our design work. As a warning, the prototype and its accompanying data is still under construction and is not fully approved by our member states yet, as a lot of the work we do is an iterative process with back and forths. It is for in-house demonstration use only. Lastly, I just want to mention that individual state agencies use separate methods to estimate water use. As a result, water use comparisons across state lines are not an exact science. Before drawing any conclusions or making comparisons today at this time, be sure to consult with your local state agency. And with that lengthy introduction, I'll just go over a quick introduction of this. This is what we're calling the Western States prototype. And this is the functioning tie into our Q&A data set this time. And I do have to apologize. We recently just pushed some big schema changes last Friday to include more data and to address more of our long-term goals. And as a result, some of these connections and tools are not working, which we will today try to fill in with more screenshots to visualize how they would normally work. But Adel alluded to this, but WSDAT is being built for a variety of individual users, from little users who just want to find more insight for water rights to larger users that want to use large-scale administration agencies and governing bodies. WSDAT is built for the gain more insight for individual or neighboring water rights to identify how water is being used in a given area, to find regional insights of water and water use, particularly those in river basins that cross state lines. The Colorado River Basin is an example of this. To assess how water right claims might affect overall storage, particularly those in a downstream setting or an upstream setting, and to assess impact prolonged droughts might have in an area. Particularly with WSDAT, you can identify water rights with a specific priority date that become increasingly valuable during droughts and identify those communities that are affected by state settings. I'll just go a quick walkthrough of what the prototype can do. Right now, I can just show you a map of the 1.8 million sites for 1 million water rights. Those are point of diversions. With that schema change we pushed this last Friday, we're now uploading point of use associated with those water rights. That is quickly doubling our sites. We do not have those displayed at this time. More to come. Some of the tools we keep with that is the ability to search with a variety of different impacts. For example, if we wanted to look for water rights that are with a specific right of, say, wildlife, fish, and we'll say in-stream flow at this time. And it's a quick return of that, of all these blue, purple, and yellow sites. Obviously, we continue to take this a little further. Priority date is a specific one for priority. So I can filter that down to 1922. And there are all those water rights with those specific beneficial uses with that priority date. And of course, we can filter down even further by, say, a river basin or a state. In this case, I'll just pull up everyone in the Colorado River Basin. And if it's going to agree with me today, as this is a prototype, we'll see all of the water rights with a priority date prior to 1922 with a recognized fish, wildlife, and in-stream water flow. We're currently adjusting our data and currently always expanding on it. We are also including the ability to look for not only individual water right owners, but we are classifying water right owner types. This is obviously filtered between private and individual users to commercial users to federal, state recognized federal use of the, say, the Forest Service, the Bureau of Reclamation. The list can go on. And that is a in development project as we continue to work on that. And I can show a little of what that's looking like. If I say all the sites recognized by the Bureau of Reclamation, and we'll say the Forest Service at this time, and there are all those sites. I'm going to do a quick swap to the presentation as this feature is not working with the schema changes we just pushed last Friday. But I just went over an example of what the water right data is looking like. Here's an example of what the aggregated water use would look like, particularly for site time series information. Here's an example of aggregated water use for county defined shape, which is also measuring the withdrawals in this area for 2008 from surface water. Here's that same county shape, but this time we're now looking at the consumptive use measurements for the 2008. This time we've changed from looking at a county shape, now we're looking at the state recognized river basins for withdrawal measurements in 2008. And here's the consumptive use for those same states. This data is continuing to build up and there'll be more of this to show later. I'm going to stop right there and I'm going to move to the mock-up of WaDE. A mock-up is kind of like an interactive presentation, and I'll just do a quick walkthrough of how a user can use WaDE. So we envision WaDE to be this interactive dashboard where a user can easily identify water rights or do regional insight. The user can obviously find a water right through simple searches through either owner name or a location search similar to any web crawler or web search online. From there, an individual can just click on a site to gain more information, and particularly clicking on the view metadata button, which will pull up all the information that is landing on that page. The landing page will have all the collected WaDE information and pertinent to that site, which includes organization information on the state agency that provided that info to WaDE, variable information that describes high-level aspects of how the data measurement statistics, site-specific information, particularly the site ID and location information of how the state recognizes that. Water source information, such as if it's a groundwater, surface water, and where that water is being withdrawn. Apologize. Water right information, where a user can see each water right associated with that site and the regulatory information associated with that water right. Due to there is a many relationship between a site and a water right, where a site can actually hold multiple water rights within individual site. We can actually view that relationship by looking at the water right ID here, and this will take us to a specific landing page, where this landing page is more water right centric versus the previous one, which is more site specific, where here we see familiar data of the organization and variable and the water right, but now we can also see all the point of diversions and the point of use associated with that individual water right. And from there, a user can continue to search and look at the individual sites again and see familiar information. Let's take this a little more further and say a user is interested in acquiring all the site information of other rights that directly impact a single water right that, say, is downstream. This feature is being built into WaDE using the network linked data index Adel alluded to, where a user would simply type in the information of a latitude and longitude of anywhere in the West they'd like to see. They would select if they'd like to see the upstream or downstream of that data, and they would tie into which databases they would like to pull in. And the result will look something similar to this, of where, depending on where the user selected, you would find all the sites related to the downstream of their chosen information. From there, it's a very similar approach where a user could just look at individual sites and then view that metadata. Let's look at a little more complex example instead of an individual. We can look at the example of finding water rights in a recognized area. In this case, we'll pull up the Colorado River Basin. And here's an example of what that would look like. A user could also, beyond looking at individual sites, a user could also look at multiple sites and find statistics on that. The return of this is a series of pie charts and information charts that help summarize their selection, including the count of the beneficial uses in this example, beneficial flow, and by volume. And obviously all this information is downloadable. We'll take a look at a quick aggregate example while we've got time, and then we'll have time for questions here. Besides the site information, we're also including the aggregate time series information. Here's an example of just the Utah one, where a user can find the time series information for that and similar metadata landing page structure. And I'm going to turn this back to Adel, so we have time for questions here at the end. Adel?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. And so those landing pages, as I said earlier, we are integrating them with the GConnect project, where each landing page has its metadata that can be, metadata crawlers can grab that metadata and understand what's the content of that landing page or environmental feature is and how it relates to other ones. So let's see.
Yeah, so I think that was related to the first question there. Will agencies need to supply data independently to Internet of Water and WaDE?
There's an echo. I'm not sure if it's at my end or, but is there an echo when I speak? No? Okay. Someone maybe left the mic open, but so yeah, I tried to answer that question in text. If will agencies need to supply data independently to the Internet of Water and WaDE? And I think if I understood it correctly, this is more of a voluntary data sharing program where it is being encouraged by the Western governors. And the whole program, I wish if Tony Willardson was here to tell you about the history of WaDE. It goes back to the Western Governors Association that they realized they needed a better platform to share that data. Especially, I think there was a project back in 2008 around water and energy nexus in the West. And they realized that water data is so sparse and not it's hard to make comparisons or even access that data. So that's sort of where WaDE started. If I did not address the question, yeah, please feel free to add more.
Yeah, so any other questions for Adel or Ryan about the dashboards or the WaDE program? Don't see any.
So Lucas, let me see. I have a couple more slides kind of to conclude this talk, and hopefully we can get more questions in the meantime. Let me share this back. Okay. Okay, so I'm sharing this PowerPoint, I hope. Yeah, do you see it fine?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Great, thank you. So kind of the big picture of things, why does this program matter? And yeah, Tony would go on and on about having water data available in a streamlined fashion across state lines. One of them, we've been talking about like stretching scarce water supplies to ensure reliability. And that's a big topic, especially in the Colorado River Basin these days, with an ongoing drought that we've been having for over 20 years now. The idea that when you know all the water rights in the basin, and you could, with a slider about the priority date, figure out the senior water rights, not just in a single state, but across state lines. You can look at those folks, especially like in an example of 1922, priority date and prior to that, those water rights are immune to a potential call on the river to release water downstream. And so identifying those water rights across state lines, I think, especially in the upper Colorado Basin, that's an interesting application that could can be relevant to water markets. Water markets have been going on for a long time, but now I think having all this data available in this streamlined fashion, it could, I think, support and I don't know, open new ways for water markets. And I want to point out that the Western States Water Council and the Western Governors Association, they have many years ago a report on basically a consensus in supporting voluntary water transfers in the West. There's a lot of discussion between state, federal, and tribal cooperation around water, and having all this data in one platform that the states at some point, hopefully sometime soon, will approve, that would be a solid fact that the discussions could be around. So we remove this idea of, oh, where the data is and what format and so forth. Interstate watershed transparency and cooperation, that's another interesting application for this data. We just applied last week with the OpenET project team to a NASA proposal that will integrate WaDE and OpenET, especially at the aggregate level. We're looking at, there's a really interesting question by one of the state engineers who's a member of our council. He asked this simple question: I want to see for each watershed in my state a figure of how much there are permitted water rights total by volume, compared to how much in that watershed there's a consumptive use estimated by OpenET. So it'll be in a click of a button, hopefully at some point, that you can look at the watershed scale of how much water is being used versus, I think what we call it like the paper water versus the wet water, the actual water that is being used. Data-driven research and science, that's close to my heart. I think when you have the data as clean as possible and streamlined, then I think the sky is the limit of what you could do with that data as far as modeling and looking at all different simulations and scenarios in the West. We have funding. We're thankful to the Inner Water team. So we've been supported through a grant through them to October this year or mid-September, and then so we've been working hard on trying to secure funding to sustain WaDE. And we've applied to the Water Smart grant. We're hopeful that we can get that one to support WaDE for, well, it's a 2-year grant, but it would be a partial support. And I forgot to mention that we're working with the Bureau of Reclamation on cross-comparing their internal water rights database for reclamation purposes and what the states have for reclamation that is recognized as reclamation water use. That's a really interesting project that we've been very excited to coordinate with them and see how the states and the states' water rights data align with their own internal one. Obviously, connecting data with states, that's going to be an ongoing project for many years to come. And we're looking actually at a third Colorado River Basin workshop. We've had 2 before, and it hasn't been decided, but we're likely to go to the Colorado Water Users Association in Vegas, I think in December. We'll be demoing WaDE there. We're going to continue to work with our IT contractor, and that's a very exciting another feature here to connect WaDE with the GConnects project and as I said, making all that data integrated with the other federal agencies. And then we've been pushing this beta release of WaDE because it depends on how, I mean, working with 18 states, as you can imagine, it takes time for us to, catch up with what they're doing, and it takes them time to catch up with what we're doing here. So, and then the IT contractor and how much, funding we have to spend money there. So we might be releasing a beta WaDE data services / a prototype dashboard in December. We haven't decided that, but if you're very interested, let us know, and we can work with you. We're very thankful to our Western state water agencies, and many of you, I think, some of you are on the call here, so thank you so much for helping us here, and many philanthropic groups, obviously the USGS folks, and the Internet of Water group. Our IT contractor, they're called Don't Panic Labs, which is fitting for an IT company. Quasi, we're very thankful to them and all the metadata standards that they have, and cutting edge tools. We've been learning and benefiting from them. I think that's that's all I have. And so I have the web page for WaDE. It's kind of still we roll out a new design, and hopefully you'll find it useful. And here's my email. We'll look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Adel. So we did have a couple more questions come in. Are you considering water quality data?
That's a great question. And I'd like to acknowledge and recognize Dwayne Young from EPA, who was a Western States Water Council, who was a liaison between between EPA and other federal agencies with the Western States Water Council. He basically jump-started WaDE, and from his experience with working with the Storette water quality portal. We are not going to be sharing water quality data because we think that EPA is much ahead on that, and they have a lot of better tools that are designed for water quality. But what we're doing is basically we're integrating this connection between water use and water rights data with EPA data through the GConnect project. So if you have a plume diversion somewhere or water right on the map or somewhere you're interested in, you can use the NLDI call within the WaDE dashboard that Ryan kind of showed a little bit. You can ask, show me basically all water rights, all water quality data upstream of this location, and it would pull all the EPA sites that have water quality data. And then we haven't yet decided how, but you can then quickly go to the EPA portal to get the water quality data there.
Okay. All right, well, that is just about all the time we have. So let me thank you guys so much. And thank you everyone for coming. We have a couple of exit polls. If you wouldn't mind just answering a few questions for us as members of our audience, which you should see pop up on your screen now. And while you're doing that, I'll just remind you that the webinar recording and the slides will be on our website, be available on our website, and we'll also send it out to everyone who registered. And I want to remind everybody to join our P2P network if you have not yet. It is a directory of members of water data producers and users. You'll get updates about our monthly webinars. Our next one on the schedule is June 17th, and it will be all about the Hydro Network Linked Data Index, which you heard both Adel and Ryan talking about today, to do the upstream downstream connections in WaDE that you saw today. So that's coming June 17th. So stay tuned for that. And then also as on the P2P network, we have our forum where we have discussions about water data. So if you have any follow-up questions or for Adel or Ryan, or questions about anything else to do with water data, don't hesitate to go to our forum and post there. And then we just have our final poll coming at you now. So thank you so much. Thank you for your participation, your attention, and your support. And thanks again to Adel and Ryan for this great presentation.
Yeah, thanks, Lucas, and the Internet of Water team for inviting us and providing this really great platform for other agencies or even academics and researchers to connect around water data. We appreciate it.